Are you a brand new real estate investor and you're still struggling to get your very first deal because you don't have the funding or the money to do it? Or are you a wholesaler and there's some deals that you want to stay in, but you haven't been able to stay in the deals because you don't have the money to close on them? Or are you a seasoned real estate investor and you've got a ton of deals underneath your belt? You just want a bunch more funding at super cheap rates? If you answered yes to any of those questions, don't go anywhere because I'm getting ready to plug you into the money. Well, hello and welcome to another amazing episode of the Private Money Academy podcast. I'm Jay Conner, your host, also known as the Private Money Authority. And here on the podcast, we talk all things real estate, and we also talk about the real estate that exists between your ears. That's right. I say all the time, until you own the real estate that exists between your ears, it's going to be very hard to invest in some traditional real estate. Well, if you've been tuning into the show, you know that I have amazing guests and experts that come on here to share their experience, to share their failures, to share their successes, and today is no exception. But before I introduce you to my amazing guest today and my very good dear friend, we've been friends for many years now, I've got a brand new money guide that I want to give to you absolutely free. The name of this money guide is 7 Reasons Why Private Money, and I'm not talking hard money, 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate business and help you build incredible wealth. You can grab a free copy of this money guide. It's chock-block full of actionable items, how to locate and get these private lenders' money ready to fund your deals. You can download it after the show at www.jayconner.com/money guide. That's jayconner.com/money guide. Be sure and grab a copy. Well, my guest today, all the way back to the late 1990s, he really had an appetite for real estate investing. His company had exploded, and he was really on his way as being a full-time professional real estate investor. Well, his passion also carried over to teaching and coaching, and he loved just making a difference in other people's lives. So by 2004, he was a nationwide, well-known speaker on stage, talking about all kinds of topics, such as entrepreneurial topics, and that included real estate investing and personal development. Well, in addition to that, my guest opened his company titled North Shore Enterprises, and this company specialized and does specialize in pre-foreclosures. Man, isn't that a hot topic here with the pandemic still going on? But he knows all about pre-foreclosures and short sales. And that goes all the way back to 2000 when he began. So since that time, he and his team, they have completed right at 1,000 short sales. Now, in 2008, my guest was released, and he co-authored a very, very highly acclaimed book by the title of Wake Up and Live the Life You Love, The Power of Team. Of course, you can get that on Amazon or Google Books. In 2012, my guest opened up a company called The Cage in Rock Hill, Connecticut. And what it is, it's a lifestyle fitness center that actually the fitness centers around learning the culture of martial arts. But it's really so much more than that, as you're going to learn about in just a second. So this business, this service provides his community truly a state-of-the-art facility for achieving fitness goals. But again, more than that, not only fitness goals, but personal development goals as well. My good friend and guest, he tells it like it is, and we want to hear how it is really and truthfully. Welcome to the show, my good friend, Patrick Precourt. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Howdy, sir, and thank you very much. That was an awesome intro, and excited to be back here, right? We did this a couple of years ago now, so it's probably long overdue. But man, you know, with the rate at which things are changing these days, excited to be here, Jay, and excited to share some cool stuff with the audience today.
Absolutely. I want us to get into the headspace stuff. And really, I tell people I can teach you all about real estate investing and how and the nuts and bolts of it. But, until you get your head screwed on right, it's sort of going to be hard to take actionable steps on, what we teach and what we coach. But before we get that, take us all the way back. What was it that got you into real estate, Pat?
Well, I was working in a family home inspection business doing home inspections, and a bunch of my clients were real estate investors, and it didn't take long after doing a number of inspections for these investors to realize I was on the wrong end of this equation. We're charging, $400 to do a home inspection, and they're making $40,000 on a real estate transaction. I'm doing the math, and my math ain't adding up. That was my introduction to it. And I don't know if you'll remember this, Jay. There used to be a publication called Creative Real Estate Magazine. And the author, man, I can't remember his name by just off the cuff, but the author, the magazine, the Girl Scouts were coming around selling like magazine subscriptions. And just at the time, I'm like, I got to somehow get introduced to this real estate investment game. This Girl Scout comes around and says, hey, pick a magazine. You got to buy a magazine subscription. And I saw one called Creative Real Estate Magazine. And boom, that introduced me to this world. A.D. Kessler, he was the author of this magazine. And he was one of the old school original guys. He was a Vietnam vet. He was confined to a wheelchair and started his investing career in a wheelchair because he was physically handicapped, couldn't do much else. Amazing story. But that's where it all started in the late 90s. And by default, without planning on it, without any thought behind it, one of our first transactions in 98 or 99 was indeed a short sale. And that's what opened my mind or ideas to the short sale world. So yeah, it's an interesting journey through that.
Yeah, when you started out, as I was telling everybody at the start of the show, your company specializes in pre-foreclosures and short sales. Tell everybody, what's the difference between a foreclosure and a pre-foreclosure?
A foreclosure is, in its simplest definition, the bank owns the property. It's a done deal. It's foreclosed on. A pre-foreclosure, it's somewhere in the process leading up to it from the bank initiated some type of action, foreclosure action. It's different in every state, of course, right? But they started the process, but the bank doesn't own the house yet. So that's the easiest way to define the two. Now, different, Jay, let me just throw in one piece here, right? Because the word short sale comes in. And oftentimes people synonymously use those words, short sale, pre-foreclosure, foreclosure, and the words are not synonymous. They were back in 2008 because you weren't working on a foreclosure property that didn't need a short sale. But that's not the same today because a lot of properties have equity in them, and there are a lot of properties in default, a different stage of foreclosure. They're not foreclosed on yet, but they ain't going to need a short sale, Jay, because they have equity in them. So I'm just highlighting this so that we can separate the terminology in your investing world, right? Don't get tricked into thinking that the two words are synonymous because they're way apart from one another, but they have an overlap.
Exactly. Given, the pandemic started back in March of 2020. So, we've been into this thing for a while. What's your crystal ball say as to what is on the horizon? What is on the horizon for foreclosures? I mean, here in my area, it's still a trickle right now. What do you think is going to be happening, Pat?
Well, Jay, all I can do is give you an opinion on this. I'm certainly not the smartest in this, trying to forecast that. There's a lot of bright people out there, but I've been in this space for 20 something years. My take on it is this: it's certainly not the same as 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? It's a way different world. The banks they were preparing for this. They're much smarter now because they know what it's like to get beaten up and beaten down. They know that they're vulnerable to get taken out like some banks did, right? The Countrywides of the world, which was a behemoth, as you recall, right? Got next, right? So nobody is protected. So they decide they got to protect themselves, and they start stacking up the cash. And I already see, and I'm sure you see this as well, banks are dealing with it differently. They're not racing to foreclose on the property. They're looking for ways with the borrower to work things out, extending mortgages, amortizing them out. Way past 30 years, 40 years. I heard of, I didn't validate or verify, but a 50-year amortized mortgage, just so the homeowner can stay in the property, right? So I see the banks dealing with it differently, which to me, common sense tells you that will slow down the onslaught of the houses actually being foreclosed on. Now, there's another side to this. There are actually people who can't afford to stay in their homes anymore. There's that. Will those eventually end up in foreclosure? And I don't see any other path for them to take, right? I think that's the ultimate path for some of those properties, unfortunately.
Yeah. Pat, I think you'd agree with me. I've been full-time. My wife, Carol Joy, and I have been full-time since 2003. Unfortunately, real estate entrepreneurs and real estate investors get a bad rap sometimes. And, we should get a bad rap because there's some scoundrels out there, but I don't know any industry that doesn't have scoundrels. But the reason that comes to mind is I don't know of another time since 2008 and 9, and I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be like it was. But I don't know of another time since then where we're going to have so many people to really serve with a servant's heart and help these people that are moving towards foreclosure and really help them out of a, desperate situation. That conversation for another time. But I just want to put it out there. I know you and I know myself approach not only this business, but we approach life as, what can I bring to the table to make a difference and serve? Because you know what? When we're helping enough other people get their problem, get their pain resolved, we don't have to worry about ourselves, do we?
Not at all. It's funny. I run a youth group here. One of the things I share with the kids is because all kids, especially teenagers, are so caught up on money and physical and materialistic things. The formula is so simple, but very few will follow. The formula is so damn simple. If you serve enough people and give them what they want, you can have anything you want. It's no more complex than that. Don't try to overthink this one, right? Just figure out how you can make an impact on other people, serve enough people. There's nothing you can't have in this world. The universe is ruthlessly generous that way. Like, you help the universe expand, the universe is right there to help you expand. It's a give and take system. It's flawless.
Absolutely. So, Patrick, let's sort of dive deep here for a few minutes into this real estate that exists between people's ears. I know you've heard it. I imagine you've heard it. I've heard it a lot. I've heard friends in the past say it. I heard a friend of mine say it as recent as 3 or 4 weeks ago. We came around the first of the year, and the conversation went like this, or his comments were, I work and I work and I work, and I love what I'm doing, but I just feel like there's more to it. And it's like, why am I not feeling fulfilled? Why am I not feeling satisfied in what I do? And Jay, there just seems like there just should be something more to me than just work, even though I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And he's a real estate investor, but I feel unfulfilled. Pat, what's missing there, and how do people go from a feeling of emptiness to a feeling of actually feeling fulfilled?
Yeah, good question. And a lot of human beings, right, when they get kind of anywhere near that halfway point, 40 plus years, that's a common space. We wake up one day, we're like, damn it, I've come pretty far in this journey here, and I still haven't gotten things figured out, right? So let me answer this in 2 different ways. And the first one will be this, right? Oftentimes we pick a career or a path or a profession, right? And we make that the focus of our attention, mistakenly. And what I mean by that is that our path, our profession, or whatever it is, right, is not the end game. It's not the goal. It's a path to the goal. No different than money, Jay. And money is a perfect example in that money in and of itself means nothing. It has no meaning attached to it at all. Up and until we attach meaning to it. So the question then becomes not about the money. It's what is the result of achieving the result? So in other words, what is the result of financial freedom? What is the result of financial independence, passive income, earning $1 million? Because that turns into a feeling. And now we're getting somewhere, because now we're pulling out of our subconscious an emotion through thought, converting it into a feeling. And now we're starting to feel something. Money has no meaning, has no feeling. People come into our gym all the time, 40 years old, say, Pat, I got to lose 30 pounds. My congratulations. Like, but why? Because wanting to lose 30 pounds and doing the hard work to lose 30 pounds are two different worlds. And once that emotion and motivation wears off, which it does in the first 10 days of you setting that new exciting goal of losing weight, right? Then what? And this is where we got to tap in. And I'll share with you how you do this, because it's magical, right? So I'll go through this process with this gentleman, women, right? So why do you want to lose the weight? And we always start out superficial with our answers, which are external answers, because my clothes don't fit and I don't like the way I look in the mirror, all this other kind of really superficial stuff that don't matter. It really doesn't matter, right? But if I pry enough and keep asking the right questions, we'll finally get into where I start getting responses that, well, I kind of feel. Well, feel comes from the inside. Good. I don't feel like the guy I once was. I don't feel like I had that mojo. I don't feel like I had that drive. Like, good. Tell me more about that. And with the guy, quite honestly, if he's 40 years old and comes into my gym and wants to lose 30 pounds because they haven't done anything in 20 years, there's usually only two reasons why, Jay. It's pretty interesting. Predictable, but interesting, right? Either he just lost his man mojo. He does not feel like that guy he once was, which is best described as confident. He needs that back. Or, and one leads to the other, or he's having problems with a partner. And he wants his, and it's not that they have a bad marriage or anything. It could be that, but it's typically not that, right? It's that they just don't have that spark, that fire, that burning passion, and he wants that back. Now watch this, and you'll start seeing how powerful this gets, right? He thinks, ignorantly, typical guy, and you and I are typical guys too, Jay, so I'm not talking down on anyone, right? Typical guy that, wow, if I lose this 30 pounds, I'll look buff and fit and I'll win back the favor of my queen. But that's not the case here. She's way less concerned about that and way more concerned about how I feel about myself, that oozing confidence and strength and power and passion and purpose. That's what attracts my queen back, right? So now I connect him to losing 30 pounds is how you're going to get the favor of your queen back. And I connect those dots with him. Now I've added meaning to the weight loss. Now, doesn't show up like 2 weeks later, typical, doesn't show up at 5:30 for his personal trainer, right? That personal trainer gets on that phone at 6 o'clock or 5:45. So they, Jim, this is Pat, just checking in. What's going on? And Jim will start with, oh, the car, the baby, the weather, didn't sleep. No, stop. That's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking you is this, Jim. Are you giving up fighting for your queen? Boom. You know Jim's ass is out of bed in there, because now he's attached meaning to what he does. Now go all the way back to where we started, our profession, your job. I wake up, I don't know why I do what I do, because it isn't the thing. But we haven't connected it to the result of why we're doing it. And that takes a little inner work, takes a little soul seeking. And this goes a little contrary, Jay, to what like some of the gurus say. The gurus always say this, right? Do what you love and love what you do. Well, guess what? I love some of what I do, but I don't love everything that I do. Right? But that's okay, because I love what I'm doing is going to do for me when I get there. I'm in love with the result of the hard work. I'm in love with what the outcome of these extra hours are going to do for me. And that's what inspires me, not motivates me out here, inspires me to show up every day and do the things that I don't like to do and enjoy doing them while I do them, even though I don't like them. You're starting to see how these dots all pour in each other?
Absolutely. So you've got the You got the guy or you got the gal that's, driven. And quite frankly, I don't know any successful, ever how you want to define that term. I don't know any successful entrepreneur that is not driven. I mean, it's like, the masterminds that we're in, it's like a room full of driven. So, and I hear it all the time. I'm driven. And then they stop and they say, why? Why am I doing all this? How does somebody unpack and answer that question?
It's almost the same question. We have to connect what we do to the result of the result. So in the simplest, like, and in your mind, picture any real estate investor or any hard-hitting entrepreneur that right? They have measurements that they track on a daily basis, right? Yep. Well, what is the result of achieving those measurements, right? And it's not just to collect money. It's what the money will do for them. Call it financial freedom, call it financial independence, call it whatever you want, right? But what does that mean? And for many of us, it means we're free to create, we're free to impact, we're free to finally step into the shoes that we're capable of becoming. We're not burdened by operations on a daily basis, right? That's the answer to that for many of us, right? But until we connect it to that, then it's just another job. And once you have, this, Jay, once you have enough money to pay your bills and, keep a roof over your house, you're not worrying about food and stuff like that. Earning more money does not become exciting, right? Up and until we connect it to something that it does for. We have to have meaning behind what we do, or we will wane in our efforts along the way. And when we get distracted by shiny objects, we'll be vulnerable to them because they're new and exciting, right? So we've got to connect to the result.
Makes a lot of sense. Back when I was 24 years old, Pat, I moved out to Wichita Falls, Texas, way back in the mobile home business. And that's a matter of fact, my first Sunday in town at church, I met my wife, Carol Joy. We've been dating for 37 years, just happened to be married 35 years of it. And so while I was out there, the Dale Carnegie man, a lot of our listeners may not even know who the Dale Carnegie man is these days. But anyway, the Dale Carnegie man came knocking on my door and invited and welcomed me to, the city and the new business that we were opening. And so he invited me to enroll in Dale Carnegie's Human Relations Principles course, which I did and I went to. One thing I learned is that some people's got it backwards. They think in order to change my action, I got to change my attitude. And I learned if I want to change my attitude, I change my actions. I said that to ask you a question. One thing I know that you are an expert at and really know how to coach people on is how to achieve and experience immediate change, not taking a long time change, but how to experience and really know what it feels like for an immediate change. How do you help people figure that out?
Cool. So let me walk you through a couple of steps here, right? Number one, it starts with a very simple question. And again, we're taught to ask ourselves terrible questions. We're taught to ask ourselves all the time, like, who am I? And it's a terrible, terrible question, Jay. And here's why, right? When you ask yourself, who am I? All we can do is look back over our shoulder and see where we've been, which was great, fantastic. But where we've been, which has shaped who we are, has only gotten us this far. And what you're talking about is you want to go somewhere else you ain't been yet. Which means you've got to become someone different. I've got to become someone different. The question we got to ask ourselves, we should be looking straight in the freaking mirror when we do it, is who do I got to become? And that opens your mind up like this, wide open. And all of these answers start filling in. Now you got something to work on. But when you go, who am I? It's a dead end question. All it does is bring you up to as far as you've come, and you can't go any further with that. Okay. That's number one. Number two, when we look in that mirror, right, we see back a self-image. And this is at subconscious and conscious level. It is impossible to outperform that person. No matter what happens out here, process, system, resources, operations, doesn't matter. We can't outperform who we believe we are. Okay. So now this brings us up to the actionable part of your question. So what the hell do we do about that? Right? Because it's hard to outbelieve or change your belief simply by saying, I'm going to believe something different. You want to change your belief, you got to your point, you've got to go get a result. You've got to take an action. Okay. So the way we go about this, and I'll give you the definition of the action, it should be something that you can do almost immediately. It should be really, really scary, challenging, almost impossible to you, right? And go at it with the ethics of the way we worked in the late 1800s. In the late 1800s, Jay, I don't know if you know this or not, but the average work week was about 70 hours a week, okay? And that wasn't sitting behind a computer pounding keys, or you and I kind of hanging out on a Zoom or a video here, right? It wasn't like that. It was out on a railroad with a sledgehammer pounding a spike in the ground all day long for how many, 8, 10, 9, 11 hours a day, right? That's 70 hours a week. Yet somehow through the years, we decided that we're too soft to work hard. And to me, I don't think life should be a grind. But when it comes to creating change and reestablishing belief and earning back that handshake with yourself, meaning that, when you say you're going to do something for you, you follow through and you get it done, that goal, that New Year's resolution, that thing, right? You can count on you earning back that belief in yourself. Man, it's hard work. And you've got to commit to the work and focus again on the result of achieving the work. Pick something scary, something that you think is nearly impossible, something you can get to right now, and go do it. Don't question it. You go all the way back to when you and I were kids and we had to ride a bike, right? Think about how daunting that was at the time. Because we saw our older sibling try it and they fell flat on their face and cut their knees and cried and wailed like a little wimp, right? We had no qualification to ride a bike. We knew nothing about physics, geometry, science, momentum, speed of pedaling, balance, steering, knew nothing. We were completely unqualified to ride a bike. But that did not stop us, because what it meant to us is we're getting a little adulting coming our way and some freedom coming our way, right? That's what conquering this bike thing meant. And we were so damn focused on what it meant to us, it overcame our opposition, our fear, our concern, our lack of resources in actually achieving it. We never used that in the math equation. So you know what? All that shit didn't matter. We just did it. That's how important understanding why you're doing what you're doing is. When we're stuck or in a rut, you got to get through all of the reasons why you can't and focus on one reason why you should. And once you accomplish that hard thing once, Jay, you quickly reestablish a belief in you in that says, man, you know what? I have been thinking a little small, maybe not giving myself the credit that I deserve, because I am capable of a lot more than I am. And as soon as you get that thing done, you pat yourself on your back, you celebrate it once and no more than once, and you go forward and go on to the next hard thing and build a little momentum. If you look at like a massive train on a railroad track, right? Say it's like I got 100 cars all full of coal and that thing's dead on the tracks. That is us stuck in a rut. Think about how many thousands of horsepowers, is that even a word, it takes to move this train, right? To get it rolling down the track. But once this thing's got a little head of steam, 30, 40 miles an hour, it doesn't take that much horsepower to maintain it. But think about the size of the barrier it can blow through because of its momentum. We need that momentum in life. Life is not a fight all the time. It's a fight to get the train rolling. That's what I'm making this analogous to. Go do that hard thing. Get your train rolling. But don't worry, you don't have to live there all the time. You'll be able to back off the throttle once you have momentum. But what most entrepreneurs do is they either stop before the train gets going, or as soon as it starts rolling, before they quite get over the little lip and get a little momentum, they back off the throttle. They pat themselves on the back too early, right? And all that momentum comes to a complete stop again. And now we're mentally, emotionally beat up and beat down, and we just wallow in our cesspool again of mediocrity until we have enough courage to try it again. And I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about, because that's an entrepreneurial like cycle right there, right?
Absolutely. And my next question, you may have already touched on the answer. And the question is, really, why is it that a lot of people just never change? Why do a lot of people just fail to change?
So there's a little internal battle that goes on. On one hand, one of our basic human needs is growth, which is change, which is good because that's what kind of gives us a future. On the other, on a psychological and emotional position, we are predisposed to stay the same. We despise uncertainty. We despise the unknown. All fear is anchored in one thing: not knowing. That's it. That's it. It's no more complex than that. Everything we fear is built around something we don't know, because we despise uncertainty at such a high level. Therefore, we have a challenge each day. Are we led by that internal drive, that basic human need to grow and expand, or do we cower to the fear of change? And unfortunately, we have a habit of cowering. And here's the thing, man. When you do it once, okay, excusable. But when you do 2 back-to-back days, you start a new habit. And each day gets easier the next to repeat what you just did. And this is truth. And this is why it's so easy to stop pursuing goals and dreams and New Year's resolutions. Like, do you know anyone, Jay, that you could point to that said, I'm going to quit my diet, and I'm going to quit getting fit and healthy, and I'm going to quit working towards financial independence, and I'm going to quit on bettering my relationship? Nobody ever says I quit. What happens is they miss a day, and then they stack up 2 back-to-back days. And then the third day gets a little easier to do the exact same thing. We're on our way to a new habit. And voila, right? It's in our past. And it's, for many, this whole New Year's resolution thing, which was exciting, like 3 weeks ago. So we're 4th week now, right? It's so far in our rearview mirror. It's like it never existed, right? But nobody said I quit along the way. So that's how that happens,
Pat, I've heard you talk in the past about there's just so much power that comes from having daily routines. And I'd like for you to speak to that. First of all, what kind of routines do you have? And what kind of power do those routines give you?
Sure. So, and maybe differently, Jay, but I don't know any human being, impactful, successful human being, that is not guided by daily routines. Now, before we get into routines, let me just share something really quick, right? Because routines are kind of funny. If you look at a basic definition for routine would be like habitual or mechanical performance of an established procedure or process. I think that's like the official definition, right? Like, okay, so far so good. But now let's look at it like some synonyms, words that mean the same thing, right? It's a grind, a groove, a pattern, a rut, a treadmill, and a descriptive word, like those would be nouns, but like adjectives of it: average, common, everyday, normal, ordinary, standard, unexceptional. Those are not exciting words. You're like, well, if that's what describes a routine, who the hell wants a routine? Here's the important takeaway here. There was a study done in the 1940, 1941, somewhere around there, and it's done in the life insurance industry. And it was done over like 5,000 or 7,000 life insurance salesmen, women who go door to door selling this stuff. And the study was to understand the common denominator of success. Of the tiny few, right, the 8% of the group that was successful by however they just define success, right? What was common amongst them? And it went like this. It was a very interesting guy. And anybody can look this up. I looked at I think if you just Google the common denominator of success, you'll find this study. It's a really good read. But in short, it went like this. The common denominator of success was that the unsuccessful were unwilling to do the hard work that the successful were willing to do. Now you're like, well, duh. What's the hard work? The unsuccessful were unwilling to commit to the habits of success. Okay, habits, repetitious behavior, good, we're getting there. What are the habits? The number one habit, the common denominator. The unsuccessful were unwilling to delay gratification, whereas the successful were okay with doing the hard work now in exchange for gratification, the reward later. Okay, so it's important to understand the kind of the underlying theme is, what are we willing to do today, right, that we won't get paid for till tomorrow. Now go ahead, Jay, re-ask the question, and I'll you'll see how these connect in.
Yeah,
I just want everybody to be on the same page here.
Sure. So what are some of your routines, and what kind of power do you get from those routines?
Good. Routines are not exciting. As a matter of fact, they're boring. They're mundane. They're monotonous. Okay. The routine can be boring, mundane, and monotonous as long as it's designed to produce through repetition the massive, outrageous results in the end of it. Okay. We all have routines. Some of our routines are not too good. Some of our routines are eating fast food 3 times a day and ain't a good routine. It's producing a not desirable outcome, right? Whereas others have very defined, regimented routines. They look like very simple, boring, average people, but they produce monstrous results on the back end. So I just want to appreciate routines are neither good nor bad by definition, but they are good or bad by how we choose to apply them. It's okay to have very ordinary routines to produce extremely extraordinary results, the result of the result, right? So mine start out really simple. I'm not the kind of guy that says, oh, get up at 3:30 in the morning, right? And not quite me, but I do generally get up every day before 6 without an alarm clock. I haven't used an alarm clock for 20 years now, and I just get up when I'm ready to get up, okay? And that does change a little seasonally. When the sun gets up earlier, I get up earlier. It's just how it works, right? First thing I do is I get up, I make coffee. I go downstairs and make coffee. And kids are in bed, wife's still in bed. And this is my time, Jay. I got nothing. There's no TV. There's no cell phone. There's no nothing. And all I'm doing right now is I'm reviewing what it's going to be like at the end of the year when I've achieved my big goals. And I'm living through that experience. And I'm thinking it, which is triggering an emotion attached to the thought that's pulling it up into the conscious, which means now I'm feeling it. And now I'm thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking as if I've already succeeded. I've won. And that cannot help but alter my actions throughout the day. Okay, so that's part one. Part two is, and I shared this earlier, is I asked myself straight up. I said, now I know my job is today. Who do I got to become today to crush this? And that's something bigger than I was yesterday. And that's kind of the goal, every day to outperform you from yesterday. And a little sidebar on that is stop worrying about what other people are doing or saying or showing you, right? You worry about you, and your goal is to outperform this guy every day. This is your competitor. This is who you're up against. This is who you got to beat from yesterday. Don't get distracted with what everybody else is doing because they're so irrelevant to what you're doing. Just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. But that's how I start my day every day. And then I end the day. I probably do this 98% of the time where I just debrief the day. And it's just a way where you get to take away the lessons, commit to the change, and not have to worry about the day ever again. So you erase it from your memory in terms of having to worry or fret over it. You just go through 5 steps. What just happened? What worked? What didn't? What did I learn? Which is just analyzing your data. And then the big part, the only part that matters is, okay, what am I going to do different tomorrow from what I learned today? Once you get that, you just throw out the rest. And boom, the day's a victory. No matter how it went, it becomes a victory because we got something new to work with tomorrow. That's kind of my routine. And then the day just happens.
I love it, Patrick. Patrick, I would venture to say, since you are a martial artist and you've got the fitness company that you provide there in the community, I would say you are an above average disciplined person. above average disciplined person, self-discipline. And I hear people, and so I'm going to wrap up with this last piece of advice that will become practical to everybody. And that is one way to reduce your stress during your day. I don't care if you're a real estate investor or anybody or doing anything else. And that is, so often, Pat, you know, and I know, social media and email runs people's lives.
Brutal.
Social media and email runs people's lives. How do you manage those two things that can be a really big takeaway for everybody here that's tuning in?
Yeah, so it's really, really simple. It goes like this, right? Let's appreciate, and this is 100% true. There's two buckets of stuff in our life, things we can control and things that are outside of our control. Okay. And the second we put any emotional currency, focus, effort on things that are outside of our control, we're creating a treason against ourselves, against those who we lead, those who honor us, those who lean in on us. We're creating a treason directly against us. So you go on social media, you start bitching and whining and complaining about everything that's out there or getting emotionally engaged. Guess what? You're now focused on something that's outside of your control. You are choosing to create a treason against you, your team, your family, those who honor you, love you, and look up to you. And you've got to take on this responsibility. We can only focus on the things that are directly inside of our control and nothing else. This means, and this is a big one for people, we got to stop fretting about the fearful future or the painful past, because neither are in our realm of control. As a matter of fact, neither of them exist. The only thing that exists, Jane, you know this, is right here, right now. And that's where we got to stay present. And email brings you out of that. Facebook brings you out of that. Social media steals this from you. So the discipline should not be to going in or out of those things. It should be, are we on something we can control or are we out of control? And that's the one thing we should focus on. And everything else will get smoothed out along the way if we can commit to that.
I love it. Patrick, thank you so much for coming to join me here on the show. Final and parting comments.
Yeah, it's, my message this year is that 2022 is going to be a lot more chaotic than 21 and 20 was, right? And we cannot sit and wait. Anyone sitting still right now is going to grow obsolete very quick. Things are moving very fast. If you want to thrive, not survive, thrive, focus on being dynamic and being able to excel in chaos. Don't fear it, right? In chaos, there's great opportunities and there's great threats. And the one you experience is going to be 100% up to you, right? Train yourself that chaos is okay and learn how to thrive in chaos. And this will be an amazing freaking year for you.
I love the motivation and the inspiration, Pat. And listen, folks, I know you want to continue the conversation with my good friend Patrick Precourt, and you can follow Patrick at www.patrick, P-A-T-R-I-C-K, Precourt, Precourt.com. All that'll be in the show notes. And again, that's www.patrick, P-A-T-R-I-C-K, Precourt, Precourt.com. Pat, I can't wait to see you in person at one of our upcoming mastermind meetings right around the corner.
Right around the corner, bro. Looking forward to it. Yeah. And anybody can always find me on Facebook too. Really, really easy. Appreciate being here with you, Jay. Absolute honor every single time, brother.
Thank you, Pat. God bless you. There you have it, folks. Another episode of Real Estate Investing with Jay Conner, the Private Money Academy podcast. And we really appreciate the subscribes, the rates, and the reviews. Give us those 5-star reviews. We really appreciate it. And if you happen to be watching on YouTube, be sure and subscribe and tap that bell so you don't miss out on any more of the amazing episodes we have coming up. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm Jay Conner, the Private Money Authority, wishing you all the best. Here's to taking your business and your career and your personal development to the next level. And we'll see you right here on the next Private Money Academy podcast.